Hello everyone and welcome back to the English in Fluency channel. I am your host Alex, and I am so happy you are here with me today for another engaging lesson. Today we have a very special episode designed specifically to help you improve your listening skills at the B1 level, focusing entirely on how to understand suggestions and advice in practical conversations. Have you ever been in a situation where a friend was telling you about a problem and you wanted to help, but you just didn't know the right English words to say? Or perhaps you were listening to two people talking and they used phrases like, "you ought to," or "how about," and you missed the meaning because they spoke too fast? Well, you are in the right place, because today we are going to solve that problem together. We are going to follow several detailed stories, listen to real-life conversations, and I will explain every phrase clearly, so that by the end of this video, you will be able to follow practical conversations easily and confidently. So, grab a cup of coffee, relax, and let's get started with our first story. Let's begin with a scenario that many of you might find familiar. Imagine a young man named Liam. Liam has been feeling very tired lately. He works in a busy office in the city, and he spends all day sitting in front of a computer screen. When he comes home, he just wants to sleep, but he finds himself unable to relax. He decides to visit his close friend, a woman named Sophia. Sophia is a very active and healthy person who always has good ideas. Let's listen to their conversation. Liam knocks on Sophia's door, and she opens it with a big smile. "Hi, Liam. Come in," Sophia says. "You look exhausted. Is everything okay?" Liam walks in, sits on the sofa, and sighs heavily. "I don't know, Sophia," Liam says. "I just feel so drained all the time. I wake up tired, and I go to bed tired. I think my lifestyle is becoming a problem." Sophia looks at him with concern and tilts her head. She is ready to give him some advice. Now, let's pause the story for a moment to look closely at what is happening. In English, when we want to give advice, we often start by showing that we care. Sophia noticed that Liam looked exhausted. This is a soft way to enter the conversation. She didn't start by saying, "You need to change your life." That would be too direct and maybe a bit rude. Instead, she asked, "Is everything okay?" This invites Liam to speak. When Liam says he feels drained, he is using a very common B1 level adjective, which means completely without energy. It is stronger than just being tired. Now, listen to how Sophia gives her suggestion. She says, "Liam, have you thought about doing some exercise? I know it sounds strange because you are tired, but a short walk in the evening might give you more energy." Did you hear the phrase she used? She said, "Have you thought about?" This is a very gentle way to make a suggestion. It is not an order. It is a question that makes Liam think. Let's continue with their conversation. Liam looks a bit skeptical. He rubs his eyes and says, "I don't know, Sophia. By the time I get home, it is already dark. I just don't have the energy to go outside." Sophia nods her head. She understands his point. In English conversations, when someone rejects a suggestion, it is polite to acknowledge their reason. Sophia uses a very useful phrase here. She says, "I see what you mean, but why don't you try going for a walk during your lunch break?" Here, Sophia uses the phrase, "Why don't you?" This is another classic way to give advice. It sounds like a question, but it is actually a strong suggestion. "Why don't you try?" is much softer than saying, "You must try," or "try this." It gives the listener a choice. which makes them feel respected. Liam thinks about this for a moment. He looks out the window. That is actually a good idea, Liam admits. I usually just eat a sandwich at my desk. Maybe I could walk to the park nearby. Sophia smiles and claps her hands together. Exactly, she says. And another thing. You should really stop drinking coffee after 3 in the afternoon. It stays in your system and ruins your sleep. Here, Sophia changes the type of advice. She uses the modal verb should. When we use should, we are giving strong advice based on our opinion or facts. We use it when we believe it is the right thing to do. You should stop drinking coffee is a direct piece of advice. Notice that she also adds the word really to make it stronger. You should really stop. Let's listen to the rest of the dialogue to see how Liam reacts. I guess you are right, Liam says. I have been drinking 3 cups a day, even in the evening. I didn't realize it was affecting me so much. Sophia stands up to pour some water. If I were you, she says, I would switch to herbal tea. It helps you relax without the caffeine. This is the most advanced structure we are looking at today. If I were you, I would. This is called the second conditional, and it is the standard way to give imaginary advice. Sophia is imagining that she is in Liam's position. It is a very polite and empathetic way to give advice. It separates the person from the problem. She isn't saying Liam is wrong. She is saying, in your shoes, this is what I would do. So, in this short conversation between Liam and Sophia, we have heard 4 distinct ways to give suggestions and advice. First, we had, have you thought about, which is very gentle. Second, we had, why don't you, which is a friendly suggestion. Third, we had, you should, which is stronger and based on a good reason. And finally, we had, if I were you, I would, which is empathetic and imaginary. These are the core structures for B1 level listening. As we continue with our next story, try to identify which structure the speakers are using. Are they being gentle, or are they being direct? Are they giving an order, or are they making a friendly suggestion? Listening for these differences will help you understand the relationship between the speakers. Now, let's move on to our second scenario. This one takes place in a workplace. We have 2 colleagues, a man named Marcus and a woman named Elena. They work in a marketing company, and they are preparing for a very important presentation. Marcus is feeling extremely stressed because the deadline is tomorrow, and he hasn't finished his slides. He is pacing around the office, looking worried. Elena is sitting at her desk, typing on her computer. She notices that Marcus is panicking. Marcus, you need to calm down, Elena says. Panic won't help us finish the work. This is interesting. Elena starts with a command. You need to calm down. Sometimes, in stressful situations, or between close colleagues, we drop the polite questions and use strong modal verbs like need to or must. This shows urgency. Marcus stops pacing and looks at Elena. I know, he says quickly. But the client wants the presentation by 9 in the morning, and the graphics are not ready. I think I am going to fail. Elena shakes her head. She decides to give him some practical advice. Listen, she says. I suggest that you focus on the text first. The graphics are less important. You can add them later. Here, Elena uses the verb suggest, followed by the word that. I suggest that you focus. This is a formal and professional way to give advice. It is very common in business settings. It sounds organized and authoritative. Marcus listens, but still looks unsure. But what if the client hates it without the graphics? He asks. Elena takes a deep breath and replies, "How about we split the work? I can do the graphics for you if you check my data analysis." This phrase, "how about," is incredibly useful. It is a way of making a suggestion that involves the speaker. Instead of saying, "You should do this," Elena says, "How about we?" She is offering to help. This turns the advice into a negotiation or a plan. It changes the dynamic from me telling you what to do to us working together. Marcus visibly relaxes. "Really? You would do that?" he asks. "Of course," Elena says. "We are a team." "You ought to ask for help more often, Marcus. You don't have to do everything alone." Did you catch that last phrase? Elena said, "You ought to ask for help more often." The phrase "ought to" is very similar to "should." It means it is a good idea or the right thing to do. However, "ought to" can sound a little bit more formal or serious than "should." It often implies a sense of duty or correctness. You ought to follow the rules, for example. In this context, Elena is gently scolding him for not asking for help earlier, but in a kind way. She is saying that it is the right behavior for a team member. So let's recap the phrases from the office scene. We heard, "You need to" for urgency. "I suggest that you" for professional advice. "How about we" for a cooperative suggestion. And "you ought to" for a strong piece of advice about correct behavior. Now, I want you to imagine a different setting. We are moving away from the office and the home, and we are going to a public place, specifically a restaurant. This scenario involves a waiter named Noah and a customer named Olivia. Olivia is sitting at a table, looking at a menu. She looks a bit confused. There are many dishes, and she has some dietary restrictions. This is a very common situation where we need to ask for advice and understand suggestions. The waiter, Noah, comes to the table. "Good evening. Are you ready to order?" he asks. Olivia looks up, a bit embarrassed. "I am not sure," she says. "I am allergic to nuts, and I am trying to avoid too much sugar. What do you recommend?" This is the key question for asking for advice. What do you recommend? When you ask this, you are inviting the other person to give you their best suggestion. Very healthy. And there are no nuts in the dish. It is very healthy. And there are no nuts in the sauce. Here we see the verb recommend again. "I would recommend" is slightly more formal than "I recommend." It shows politeness. Olivia looks interested. "That sounds good," she says. "But I am also very hungry. Is the portion big enough?" Noah thinks for a moment. He wants to give honest advice. "If you are very hungry," Noah suggests, "you might want to add a side of rice. It is light and fills you up." Notice the structure Noah uses here. You might want to. This is an extremely polite and soft way to give advice. It is not aggressive at all. It suggests a possibility. It implies, it is just an idea. You can say no. It is perfect for a customer service situation. He doesn't say, "Eat rice." He says, "You might want to add." Olivia smiles and nods. "That is a great idea. I will take the salmon with rice, please." "Excellent choice," Noah says. "I will put that order in for you right away." In this restaurant scene, we saw how recommend is used for professional advice, and you might want to is used for soft, polite suggestions. Let's take a moment to practice what we have learned so far. I am going to describe a situation, and I want you to think about the best phrase to use. Imagine your friend wants to buy a new phone. but he doesn't know which one to choose. He asks you for advice. You think the latest model is too expensive, and he should buy the older model to save money. How would you say this? You could say, "You should buy the older model." That is direct. Or you could be softer and say, "If I were you, I would buy the older model." Both are correct, but they have different tones. The second one sounds more like a friend giving a personal opinion. Now, imagine you are in a meeting. Your boss asks for ideas on how to improve sales. You have an idea about using social media. You wouldn't say, "Boss, do this." You would probably say, "I suggest that we use social media more effectively." This is professional and appropriate for the workplace. Okay, let's get back to our stories. We are going to introduce a new character named Ethan. Ethan is a university student. He is struggling with his time management. He has exams coming up next week, but he keeps procrastinating. Procrastinating means delaying work and doing other things instead. He goes to the university library to meet his study partner, a student named Chloe. Chloe is very disciplined and organized. She sees Ethan walking into the library, looking disorganized and carrying a huge stack of books. Chloe sighs. She knows Ethan is going to need help. "Hey, Ethan," she says, "you look like you are carrying the weight of the world." Ethan drops the books on the table with a loud thud. "I feel like it too," Ethan says. "I have 3 exams, and I haven't started studying for any of them. I am so stressed." Chloe opens her notebook. She is ready to give some constructive advice. "Okay, first things first," Chloe says. "You had better make a study schedule today. If you don't, you will fail." This phrase, "you had better," is very strong. It is often used as a warning. It implies that there will be a negative consequence if the advice is not followed. Chloe is not just suggesting, she is warning him. "You had better make a schedule" means it is necessary that you make a schedule, or something bad will happen. This is stronger than should or ought to. Ethan looks a bit scared. "You are right," he says. "I am just so distracted by my phone and video games." Chloe nods sympathetically. "Well, a good idea would be to leave your phone at home when you come to the library," she suggests. "Then you can focus." Here she uses the structure. A good idea would be to. This is a nice, neutral way to float a suggestion. It is less personal than "if I were you," but very clear. Ethan thinks about it. "I can't leave it at home," he says. "My mom calls me sometimes, but maybe I can turn off the notifications." Chloe smiles. "That works too," she says. "Why not try the Pomodoro technique? You study for 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. It helps with focus." "Why not try" is another variation of "why don't you?" It is an encouraging suggestion. It invites the person to try something new without pressure. Ethan sits down and opens a book. "Okay, I will try that," Ethan says. "And maybe you could quiz me later?" Here, Ethan is making a request for help, which is a type of suggestion. "Maybe you could" is a polite way to ask for assistance. Chloe agrees. "Sure," she says. "But you need to promise me you won't play games on your laptop while we study." "I promise," Ethan says. In this university scene, we saw "had better" used for strong warnings, and "why not try" for encouraging suggestions. Understanding the intensity of the advice is crucial. If a friend says, "you had better," they are usually serious about the consequences. Now, let's shift gears to a slightly more difficult situation. We are going to listen to a conversation between a mother and her teenage son. The mother is named Rachel, and the son is named Toby. Toby wants to borrow the family car on Saturday night to go to a concert with his friends. However, his mother knows that he hasn't been driving for very long, and she is worried about safety. They are sitting in the kitchen. Toby is trying to persuade her. "Mom, please let me take the car," Toby says. "Everyone else is driving." Rachel looks at him seriously. "Toby, I am not sure it is a good idea," she says. "It is supposed to rain heavily on Saturday, and you don't have much experience driving in the rain." Here, Rachel uses a soft refusal, followed by a reason. "I am not sure it is a good idea." This is a polite way to say no or to suggest that the plan is bad. Toby pleads, "But I am a good driver. I will be careful." Rachel sighs. She wants to be fair, but safe. She decides to propose a compromise. "How about this?" Rachel says. "What if your dad drives you there and I pick you up? Or you could take a taxi." "What if" is a great phrase for proposing an alternative. It is a way of suggesting a different solution to a problem. Toby looks disappointed. "That's not cool, Mom," he says. "I want to drive." Rachel stays calm. She decides to use stronger advice. "Toby, listen to me," she says. "You must understand that safety is the most important thing. I strongly advise you not to drive in the storm." Here she uses strongly advise and the modal verb must. This is the highest level of advice. It is bordering on a rule or a command. Parents often use must when they want to enforce a boundary for safety. "I strongly advise you not to" is very formal and serious. Finally, Toby realizes she is not going to change her mind. "Fine," he says. "I will ask Dad for a ride." Rachel smiles and pats his hand. "Thank you for understanding," she says. "It is for your own good." In this family scenario, we saw the progression from soft suggestions like, "I am not sure it is a good idea," to strong directives like, "You must," and "I strongly advise you." We have covered a lot of ground today, from health and work to restaurants, university, and family. We have heard characters like Liam, Sophia, Marcus, Elena, Noah, Olivia, Ethan, Chloe, Rachel, and Toby, using a wide variety of phrases to navigate their lives. Let's take a few minutes to summarize the key listening points so you can recognize them in the future. When you hear "you should" or "you ought to," the speaker is giving you their opinion on the right thing to do. It is standard advice. When you hear "you had better," listen for a warning. There is usually a consequence if you don't follow the advice. When you hear "if I were you," the speaker is being empathetic and sharing what they would do in your place. This is usually very friendly advice. When you hear "why don't you?" or "why not?" it is an encouraging invitation to try something new. Also, pay attention to the difference between suggest and recommend. We usually suggest an action or an idea, and we recommend a specific item, like a dish in a restaurant or a product. For example, "I suggest that you leave early" is about an action. "I recommend the blue shirt" is about a specific object. Listening for these small differences will help you understand the details of the conversation much better. Now, I have one final story for you today. This one involves a couple, a man named Daniel and a woman named Isabella. They are trying to decide where to go for their summer holiday. They have very different ideas. Daniel loves the beach and hot weather. Isabella prefers the mountains and cool air. They are sitting in their living room with a map spread out on the coffee table. So, Daniel says, pointing to a sunny island on the map, what do you think about going to the Canary Islands? It is sunny, beautiful beaches, and we can swim all day. Isabella frowns a little. She doesn't hate the beach, but she wants something different. It sounds nice, Isabella says, but I really prefer to be active on holiday. I don't want to just sit on the beach. Daniel understands. He wants to find a solution. Okay, Daniel says. Maybe we could go somewhere that has both? I propose we look at the south of Spain. There are beaches, but also hiking trails nearby. I propose is a formal way to make a suggestion, often used when negotiating a plan. Isabella looks at the map. She traces a line with her finger. That is a possibility, she admits. But I was reading about the Alps. You could try paragliding there. It would be exciting. Here, Isabella uses the phrase, you could try. This is a very open suggestion. She is offering an option for him to consider. Could is less certain than should. It is about possibility. Daniel laughs. Paragliding? That sounds scary, he says. But I am willing to try new things. How about we spend 1 week in the mountains and 1 week at the beach? Would that work for you? This is the how about structure again, used for a compromise. Isabella's eyes light up. Really? You would do that? She asks. Yes, Daniel says. It is important that we both enjoy the trip. I suggest we book the tickets tonight, before they get too expensive. Isabella leans over and hugs him. That is the best suggestion you have ever made, she says. This story shows how suggestions and advice are used in negotiation. They used, what do you think about? Maybe we could. I propose. You could try. And how about to reach a compromise? As you can see, understanding advice and suggestions is not just about grammar rules. It is about understanding the relationship between people. Are they friends? Are they colleagues? Is one person an expert? Is there a danger? All these factors change the words we choose. If you are listening to a conversation and you hear someone say, I reckon you should. This is a very informal, casual way of giving advice, common in British or Australian English. If you hear, it is highly recommended that, this is very formal, perhaps an announcement on a train or a written sign. By paying attention to these clues, you will improve your listening comprehension significantly. I want to encourage you to practice these phrases in your daily life. Even if you are just talking to yourself in the mirror, try to say them out loud. Look at your reflection and say, if I were you, I would study English every day. Or, you had better wake up early tomorrow. Speaking the sentences helps your brain remember the patterns. Also, try to listen for these patterns in movies or TV shows. When a character has a problem, listen to how their friend responds. Do they say, you should? Do they say, have you thought about? You will start to hear these patterns everywhere. Before we finish, let's do a quick guided visualization. Close your eyes for a moment if you can, or just relax. Imagine you are walking down the street. You see a tourist looking at a map, looking very lost. You want to help them. You walk up to them. What do you say? You might say, excuse me, can I help you? The tourist says, yes, I am looking for the train station. You know the way. You decide to give them some advice to make it easier. You say, it is a bit difficult to find. I suggest you turn left at the next street and walk straight for 10 minutes. The tourist smiles and says, thank you so much. You feel good because you gave helpful advice using the correct phrase. This is the power of English fluency. It allows you to interact with the world and help others. We have spent a lot of time together today exploring these concepts. We met Liam and his tiredness, Marcus and his stress, Olivia and her menu choices, Ethan and his study struggles, Toby and the car, and Daniel and Isabella planning their trip. Through all these stories, you have heard the rhythm of advice. You have heard the tone of suggestions. You have seen how intonation changes meaning. When we say, "You should really go," our voice goes down on "really" to show emphasis. When we say, "Why don't you come with us?" our voice usually goes up at the end because it is a question. These details in pronunciation are just as important as the words themselves. I hope this detailed practice has been helpful for you. My goal on the English in Fluency channel is to make English come alive for you. I don't want you to just memorize lists. I want you to feel the language. I want you to understand the emotions behind the words. When you understand the emotion, the listening becomes easy. You don't need to translate every word in your head. You just understand the situation. That is the path to fluency. If you enjoyed this lesson and found it useful, please make sure to hit the like button below. It really helps the channel grow and tells me that you want more content like this. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to English in Fluency and click the notification bell so you never miss a new video. I have many more listening practice videos, grammar lessons, and vocabulary guides coming up that you won't want to miss. And if you want to practice writing, leave a comment below. Try to write a sentence giving advice using the phrase, "if I were you." I will try to read as many comments as I can. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, fluency is a journey, and you are doing great. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.